Will AI chatbots kill nonfiction, Thomas? We have a tweet here. I have 100 cookbooks written by real chefs and cooks, but every night I Google food weeknight dinner fast. And I make a recipe from a blog I will never visit again, like parsnips and cowlicks, or girl with a spatula, or hearts of Pam. So, is AI generated content going to crush nonfiction like bloggers, like food bloggers, recipe blogs, um, or how tos and stuff like that, which we've kind of talked about in the last few weeks.
Yeah, so this isn't even AI. This example could have come from 10 years ago, right? I'm Googling it and finding blogs with the recipe. And where things are headed is this Lucy Huber, who had this tweet. I saw that she made her X account private. I think this tweet may have gone more viral than she wanted. Where people just ask ChatGPT, what should I make tonight? Or, hey, ChatGPT, I've got these 6 ingredients. What can
Yeah.
I cook with that? And ChatGPT is actually really good at that, where it can generate a recipe from the ingredients that you already have. And right now, it's a much better experience because GPT is not super monetized. I mean, you pay for it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not full of ads. Whereas the experience of recipes on the internet is
Oh my
pretty
gosh,
awful right now.
so
Like, it's
terrible.
a big long blog post full of nonsense. You have to scroll down, and there's like a
Jump to
million ads, and they
recipe.
keep refreshing, and it's just not a good experience. And so, I think cookbooks are where a lot of nonfiction is headed. So, the kind of nonfiction that's really getting hurt by this new technological era has already been hurt, right? Dictionaries, encyclopedias, phone books, reference books really struggled to do well. So the question is, what about the next level up of reference book? And the book that I follow really closely is What to Expect When You're Expecting. In fact, I own every edition of What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Okay.
Or, because it's the same, it's solving the same problem, right? I'm pregnant, I don't know what to expect, and yet it's doing it the exact same book for 3 generations now of women, and the book has evolved over that time. So now what to expect is more of an iPhone app than it is a book. So it's still a book, but now there's an iPhone app with a community, and they create a community for every month of the year. So if
Mm.
you have a baby due in September, you're in a community of other moms whose babies are also due in September. So you can all kind of complain about the same sorts of things at the same time. And you can also see as babies are born prematurely and how they're doing. And it gives you a sense because you see a picture of this real live baby. Oh, that's what the baby inside of me looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm anticipating what to expect will go, and I haven't checked their website recently, they might be already here, is training an AI chatbot off of their 10,000 medical articles and the content of the book, where people can ask the what to expect chatbot questions the same way you can ask AI Thomas questions. So, because I've been experimenting with this already. AI Thomas, I launched that instead of launching a book on book marketing. I still have not written a book on bookmarking. I made AI Thomas instead. AI Thomas has access to 2 or 3 million words worth of me talking about book marketing, and it can give you like a mini chapter for your specific problem, and it can answer your specific question, and in most cases do it pretty well. Not always, and sometimes that's where new episodes come from. If AI Thomas is really struggling, I'm like, oh, I need to do an episode on that. In fact, next week's episode may have been inspired by me wanting to train an AI model on a thing that I thought I had an episode on, and I didn't. It's very embarrassing.
You didn't have an episode on something?
Not
Bingo
only did
card.
I not
Bingo
have an
card.
episode,
It
not only did
counts.
not only did I not have an episode on something, the topic I didn't have an episode on was book pages on websites. Like,
What? You made an app.
I literally created the world's most popular plugin to do this for you, and I never at any point, to promote the plugin or otherwise,
Go haze
did
yourself.
an actual episode. And so now that book pages have become incredibly important with AI,
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
maybe now's the time to do an episode on book pages. So that's the next week's episode. I just recorded it this morning. So I do think nonfiction will be hurt in the question answer approach. I have a question. I'm looking for an answer. It's now faster to get that answer through an AI chatbot than it is to read a book. But where nonfiction is not going to get hurt is in, I would say, like persuasive nonfiction or helping people kind of understand something where they don't even know what questions to ask. So the downside of AI is that you have to come to it with will and intent. And so if you haven't read Harry Potter, you don't know how to prompt AI to give you Harry Potter. Uh, the llama can only vomit up Harry Potter if you prompt it with the paragraph before the paragraph you
Right.
want, and then it'll give you that next paragraph, and then use that paragraph to try to get the next
Yeah.
paragraph, and other techniques like that. And so, if I look at my shelves of the kind of nonfiction books I'm glancing at, most of these nonfiction books are actually pretty safe because they are persuasive. And when you're building a case, there's a hierarchy. There's a this has to come before this has to come before that. Those kinds of books I think are going to do better than like dummies type books, reference type books, which will have to compete more and more with an AI that will help you with the one next question you have, and then it can answer the next question you're having. It will basically tutor you through the topic.
So, Thomas, discussion point then. Going back to what to expect when you're expecting, that's a largely female audience that isn't just looking for an answer, they're looking for a community to support them. So do you think they're really going to get any benefit out of an AI chatbot that's going to give them answers? Because that's more of a masculine thing. A man, when he has a baby, is going to be like,
Men don't have babies,
why is it
Jonathan. I want to
why is it
clarify
crying?
this right now.
Shut up, you know what I'm saying. When he's holding his baby and wanting to feed and wanting to know why it's crying or what this rash is or something like that, he's looking for an answer.
Yeah.
Okay. But when a woman is doing that, in my experience, they are looking for a community of women who are not just going to give them the answer. They're also going to give them 12 wrong answers. But the point is that they're being supported by a community that's going through the same things they are, and they feel supported because other people are going through the same thing that they are at this moment, and they're getting encouragement and they're getting that. I'm not sure the AI chatbot is actually going to solve their problem because they're also looking for all that peripheral stuff.
I agree. I think the community is more valuable than the book at this point.
Yeah.
So my wife, she owned the book and she would consult it occasionally. In fact, we just consulted it recently with an issue with our baby, and we still consulted the book rather than going to AI. I think that the AI version of What to Expect doesn't exist yet. They haven't built that yet.
Right.
Although
Right.
you can ask Grok or ChatGPT,
And it will pull from that.
questions. But what I'm more curious is the impact on the paper book sales or the ebook sales particularly. Because what's the better? So obviously the app where
Right.
you're chatting with other moms, that's top shelf experience.
Yeah.
It gives you answers to questions, but it also gives you commiseration. Because a lot of it is like, I just threw up this morning. I've thrown up every morning for the last 7 days, and a bunch of other moms are like, "Yeah, I'm right there."
I haven't eaten bread in 6 months.
A bot is not telling you, "Oh, you have morning sickness, and this is what you can expect." It's like,
remember Wall-E?
"Thank you, useless bot. That doesn't help."
You remember Wall-E, the hairdresser robots who are like, yeah, I know, man.
But the book part, because remember, we're authors. Most people here don't have the money required to create an online community, because the kind of online community that What to Expect has is actually a very expensive community. I have a fraction of that community with authormedia.socials, www.authormedia.social. I run it through Circle, and that costs me, I think it's $80 a month just for the platform, not including staff monitoring it and all of the other kind of ancillary costs. Most authors don't want to pay $80 a month for a community, and it gets more expensive as the communities get bigger and more complicated. And so most authors are still trying to write that paper book. And now kind of what we're facing is this community piece, which you can do cheaper on places like Discord or Facebook. And then now the chatbot piece. And my one suggestion for you is to consider, if you're a nonfiction author, taking your book and creating your own chatbot that's a part of the community. So you have the book, you have the community, and you have the chatbot, and you give your readers all three, and they're all three coming from you. I think that's your best position to survive this new world where people access information in very different ways.
Is that a subscription-based model then? Because, I mean, part of part of doing this is getting the sales from the book. If you have a free chat bot and they don't need to buy the book,
I would no, I don't think you could charge for that. I think it depends on the topic. What I would do is I would put it behind a email gate where people have to give you their email address to get access to the chat bot. But again, it depends on your book. Because if you're making a persuasive book, I think giving away the chatbot for free makes a lot of sense. If you're
Yeah.
doing a reference book, then I would perhaps include the chatbot with the purchase of the book, where they get a code or so. I don't know. That gets complicated.
yeah, that's
Uh,
we need to track that because that's a serious strategic shift, especially for nonfiction authors. And fiction authors, you are not exempt from this either because they're talking about getting to the point where a reader can just prompt the kind of book they want to read. And we talked about that before and how that would be possible. But that's something you need to be looking for in the future too. You really need to develop your voice and the human element of your writing because if you're going to stay impersonal and distant, AI can do that. So it's something really to keep in mind, especially coming down the road, is you do not want to get rendered obsolete.
that personal touch, that personality,
Yeah.
the thing that you were trained by your English professor in college to buff out of your writing is the one thing that will give you an angle. And the thing about your personality is that some people don't like it, and that's important, right? So this is where it goes back
That
to
never
knowing your
happens to me,
affinity.
Thomas.
So not all personalities mesh with all other personalities, right? And sometimes and let's switch over to food, right? Sometimes the food that's the most loved is also the most hated, right? The controversial food is what has, like hot sauce, for instance. There are people who just, they have shows about hot sauce and they have magazines for hot sauce and they spend hundreds of dollars on these tiny little bottles and they know what a Scoville rating is. And other people who hate hot sauce, right? They're like, why would you add pain to an otherwise perfect meal? It doesn't make any sense to me. I want my meals to be pain free. It's like, why would you want to have hot sauce, right? So
Feels obvious.
it's like, why do I need to explain this? Why do people put spice on their foods, right? And so part of it is cultural, part of it's, what did you grow up doing? And there's lots of pieces of that. And the same is true with personality. And so
Yeah.
if you want to compete with the bot, being very much the way that you are, even almost an exaggerated form of who you are, like even more permission than you normally give yourself, is actually
Right.
what will create those really strong bonds with the people who do like what you have to offer. Because plain vanilla, although vanilla is actually a really popular flavor for ice cream anyway,
But people don't think of it as a flavor.
it's
They
true.
think of it as a default.
That's right. So a plain, let's say bland, flavorless writing that just answers the question, nothing more. The AI can do that really well. And so you doing it with your personality, I think, is more important now than ever.